I'm back, and this time we are going to take a look at an odd plugin, an unusual effects plugin, which is called Corpus. So the way to think of Corpus is if you hold something next to your speakers and the speakers shake that something or vibrate that something or resonate that something, that's what Corpus is trying to emulate. So you've got several algorithms to play with, which we'll go through here. Look, beam, marimba, string, membrane, which is like a drum skin, plate. So that'd be like a big flat sheet of a material, glass or metal, something like that. And then we've got pipe and tube. Pipe is a cylinder that's closed at one end and open at the other. And tube is open at both ends. Now, depending on what algorithm you choose, you'll see some of these controls will change. They're kind of context sensitive. And you've got a quality setting here. I'll keep this on full. So if we just start at the top, so if we choose the beam algorithm, it's like you holding a long beam of material next to your speakers as you play a sound. And the plugin is trying to emulate or recreate what kind of resonant frequency and sound that beam would make as a response to the audio coming out of your speakers. Make sense? Kind of? Yeah, well. We'll have a listen to what it does in a second. So we're going to start off in this middle section because that's the main section. Everything else is kind of fairly standard. So, okay, beam. First control you've got here is decay. So think of this like a reverb decay. This is like how long your material is going to ring for or vibrate for. And if you look at this XY control, it's hardwired to these two parameters here. So you can control the decay time. And you can also control the material parameter. And this is effectively a control that allows you to emulate what kind of material that your object or your resonant object is made out of. So at lower values, your low frequency is going to decay more slowly. And at higher values, the higher frequencies are going to decay more slowly. So the higher frequencies or the higher settings will sound more like glass or metal. And then lower down, it's going to sound more like rubber or wood. And these are approximations. It's not trying to really recreate it realistically. I don't think we're quite there yet. Moving down to here, if we come down to a pipe or a tube setting, you'll see that this little section here is grayed out. So let's come back up to beam. As I said, some of the controls are only applicable to some of the algorithms. So we've got listening left, listening right, and hit parameters to control. Now what these mean are, if you change the setting to 0%, the left channel is going to effectively be listening right in the middle. And the higher you set this, the more towards the left this channel is going to be listening to. What was it set up before? 10%. Let's just try and put that in manually. Yes, you can do that. Good, because I cannot do it with my mouse. And it's the same with the right channel. So if we set this right down to 0%, you're pulling that right hand listening position back into the center. So let's put that back where it was. 90. Oh, you can double click there. I didn't know that. And then coming down to hit position, this is whereabouts on the object your audio is hitting it. All right. So if you have the sound of a hammer, your hammer audio will hit your resonating object at 50%. It'll hit it right in the middle. And then you can go towards the edges, left or right. Coming up to ratio, this is only applicable to certain algorithms. So let's come down to membrane. So this is like a drum. Plate is like a big plate. And what the ratio does is it allows you to alter the shape of your object between square down here, right down at the bottom, and more of a rectangular shape right up at the top. So let's leave that at 50%. Brightness you can think of as a tone control. So this allows you to increase the upper frequencies and the lower frequencies. So yes, a bit like a filter. And then in harmonics, this allows you to change the pitch of the resonator's harmonics. And at lower values, I'm actually reading this from the left here, I've just realized, it increases the amount of lower partials, and at positive values, up here like this, the frequencies are stretched, increasing the amount of upper partials. Now, it's quite confusing to understand what that does. We'll have a listen to it in the context of some audio coming into it, but it's just going to change the tone of the audio signal in a slightly different way than the brightness filter. If you think of yourself visualizing a saw wave on a spectrum, the harmonics that go from left to right are going to be altered with this parameter here. Okay, so that's most of the controls here covered. We're going to come back and play with them in a minute when we have some audio coming into it. I'm just going to move over to the left. We've got a tuning parameter here. This allows you to change the resonant frequency. This is the frequency at which your object is going to resonate at. Skip the fine one for a second. Let's set that back to normal. Underneath here, you've got a little readout which tells you you've got a frequency value, but you've also got a note value here. And because this plugin will resonate at a specific frequency a lot of the time, it has a particular note value. So if you click on tuning and just hit up and down with your arrow keys, you can actually see you've got a bit more fine control over which specific note it is that your object is going to be resonating at. And then coming down to spread, you can think of this control like a detune knob. This slightly detunes the left and right channels against each other. So that's fairly simple to understand. Then over to the LFO section. The LFO it's hardwired to your resonant frequency, or effectively the tuning. So this is like a tune or a pitch modulation. So standard LFO controls are LFO shape. You've got LFO amount. This is the intensity of your LFO modulation. Rate or speed, and rate or speed can be set in hertz value or in note value. So this is synced to your DAW tempo. And underneath here, you've got a phase. So set to 180 degrees, they're going to be, each LFO left and right channel is going to be 180 degrees apart. So when one's up, the other one's down, and you can adjust that up and down. And this is going to adjust your stereo separation, or it's going to have an effect on the stereo width of the sound. And then you can also, in this mode here, you can adjust the starting point or the offset of your LFOs. So if you imagine your waveform here, this is going to adjust where on the waveform the LFO starts. So coming back down to here, switching back to hertz. This gives you a slightly different control. You've still got the phase control, but you can also set this to spin. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to adjust the left and right channels speed slightly separately. So as you increase this, the LFO on the left channel is going to be a slightly different speed to the LFO on the right channel. Again, this can result in quite some interesting stereo effects. So let's put this back to where it was, switch the LFO off. And then finally over to, I suppose this is the master section. You've got a filter. This works in the same way as the filter on ping pong delay. So you can adjust your frequency, filter frequency, and your width or Q, and you can use the grab handle there to do it manually, just like you can with ping pong. A width control. This is, I would imagine, the same as the width control on utility plugin. Then you've got bleed. This allows you to feed more of the original audio signal back into the affected signal. Sometimes the reason they give for this is sometimes your high frequencies can be damped quite a lot with this plugin, and this allows you to restore them somewhat with the bleed control. Then you've got standard gain control and dry wet control, set to 50% by default. So, by the way, this is also made by Applied Acoustics. Again, I don't know if it's fully made by them, fully coded by them, or whether it's in conjunction with Ableton. But there you go, interesting tidbit. So let's listen to some audio. I'm going to switch everything off. I've got this set into a little group. So I've got Corpus, I've got utility, because sometimes it can get a bit loud, and I've just put a reverb on the end because we're going to get all sound designy. Let's have a listen to the bass sound here, the bass unaffected sound. This is a sample from Ultimate Effects by Sonic Academy. Right, so let's switch Corpus on. We're going to set it to the standard beam algorithm. So the sound you're listening to is going to virtually vibrate a large beam. So we can increase or decrease the decay time, what the beam's made out of. Let's just set this to 100% wet. And then we can tune it, remember? This is like your detuning parameter. Let's just start the sample again. Wait for it to come in a bit. So you can hear the left and right channels detuning as I mess around with this parameter here. Then we've got our listening left and right parameters here. So if I put these both back down to 0, it's going to be mono. And then we can adjust these manually, left and right channels. And this is where the object's being hit. This, I mean, in this situation, I don't think this parameter is going to have that much of an effect. Then we got width. So we've got mono, stereo. We can feed the original source back in. So listen to the top end slightly come back in as you increase the bleed parameter. It'll help if I turn the filter off. That's the dry signal, and that's what we're doing to it. Right, let's choose another algorithm. Let's choose a string. Completely different, you see. And then come down to my favorite. Actually, let's just do membrane as well. So what I'm doing with this kind of sound is I don't set out with an idea, right, I'm going to do this with this plugin and it's going to sound like this, because I have no idea how it's going to sound like most of the time with this plugin or plugins like this. That's what makes it fun. I'm actually going to come down to pipe or tube, because these are some of the ones I like the most. Let's set spread back to where it was. So with pipe, you've got the opening parameter, so you can change the opening at one end. That's pretty cool, actually. I'm actually going to switch utility on as well, just to reduce the gain a little bit, because the signal coming from Corpus into ToraVerb when I switch it on can sometimes be a bit clippy. One thing I forgot to mention, this little light here, this little yellow light, that's a limiter built into Corpus, because it resonates, it does have a tendency to smash that ceiling of volume. I mean, it's on all the time right now. Okay, shut up. Okay, what we're going to do now is switch on the LFO. So remember, this LFO is it's adjusting, it's modulating this resonant frequency. So we're effectively doing pitch modulation with the LFO. So you can hear that wibbling and wobbling away. And this is where I like getting all sound designy with this. What I want you to imagine is, imagine when you see the big spaceships flying past in Star Wars. It's this kind of plugin that they're going to be using. Everybody's like, how do they do that sound? It's this kind of plugin, I believe, that they're going to be using. And also, they use a lot of granular stuff. But have a listen to this. I'm going to switch on ToraVerb for added special juice. That's really cool. Shush, shush, shush. We'll just have a little play with the other audio source I've got as well, which is, let's just switch everything off so you can have a listen to it dry. So instead of a constant drone, this is more like a radio signal, kind of glitching backwards and forwards. And we'll try with string. Something I forgot to mention, I actually find this a lot of the time more useful, wrong button. I find this more useful when the tuning's set right down, because there's more interesting results. Not always, but sometimes. We'll try it a little bit further up later on as well. in a second. So let's just try this string algorithm, doing the same kind of thing as we were before. Remember, that's dry, that's what we're starting with. Let's try this on membrane. Start the sample again. Yeah, I think this might work better with tube again. These are my favourite two algorithms down here. Let's have a listen. Let's try pipe. Which one haven't we done yet? Have we done plate? No, we haven't done plate. Yeah, because we can play around with the material and the ratio size with this one. Start again. I mean, I'm sorry if I'm rambling a bit with this one, but this is, like I said, it's one of those plugins where you don't sit down with a plan in mind. I often just play around with it and find these sweet spots. So let's play together. Increase the rate of the LFO. Start that again. Actually, let's try the first sample with plate as well. And again, this is the dry sample. This is what it's giving us. And that's like a horror video game sound. If you're playing Resident Evil, you hear that kind of nonsense in the background, and you're like, "Oh my god, what is that?" So you can use this plugin for loads of different sources. I've just happened to choose, because I've been using drums and other kind of standard stuff in the other videos I've done. In this video, I have chosen to use some odd stuff. It's definitely one of those plugins you need to play around with and experiment with. It works. It does work well with drums as well, especially if you're using like a snare, because you can tune the resonant frequency. You can actually dial in quite a good sound and like an added layer of interest on a snare or percussion sound. Using the LFO, you can mess around and get something interesting going on as well. So yeah, this was a bit of a rambly video. It's always going to be a rambly video with these kind of creative oddball effects plugins, but I hope you found it useful anyway, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Thanks everybody for watching, commenting, and indeed liking. We really do appreciate all the support we get here on our Sonic Academy YouTube channel. So if you found this video super useful, please, we'd love you to hit the subscribe button. We update the YouTube channel every week with new content, and if you want to watch some more relevant content, just click on the videos beside me.